Johnson, we see in LA how an incompetent mayor can burn a city to the ground. A lot of Chicagoans are telling me that they fear that you're burning Chicago to the ground financially, and the S&P downgrade is proof of that. You say that you're surrounded by the greatest financial minds in the country, yet your vice mayor, who's standing right next to you, Alderman Burnett, is a convicted bank robber.
Before we
Let's stop right there for a second, guys, and let's have this conversation because I've reviewed this reporter's work before. I've seen his interaction with Brandon Johnson before. I'm not even really sure why they let him in the building because he is an absolute menace to that administration, and in a good way for the people, but certainly he is a menace nonetheless. So let's have a little bit of a conversation really quickly because I want to explain to some people. I know that some of you guys may be experts already, and some of you may watch the Millionaire Morning Show, but I want to explain to some people what this means to the citizens of Chicago, right? What this basically means is a credit downgrade is similar to being a subprime borrower as a person that is buying a car or trying to purchase a home or trying to get a credit card. Is bad across the board. And the reason that it's bad is because it's going to cost the city more money. So because you have incompetent leadership inside of these administrations, and for whatever reason, they're hell-bent on destroying these cities, what happens is they sell off their streets. Yes, Chicago does not own its own streets. A foreign entity will own its streets till like 2079 or something like that. Sold off their streets for like $1 billion. And they generate way more revenue than that every single year. And they will be doing that until like 2079. So even when Chicago want to like shut down their streets for like a parade, or if they can't collect money on the parking meters or something like that, then Chicago has to pay a fine to whatever entities, whatever private company or whatever foreign company owns their street. That's how incompetent the leadership has been over the years in Chicago. In addition to that, of course, we know that they're trying to raise property taxes and they got a bag tax. And basically, if you breathe air in Chicago, you will be taxed out of your eyeballs. They have declared war against people and the business owners and the business leaders that generate the revenue and, create the jobs inside of Chicago. And then more importantly, they've spent an egregious amount of money on things that don't matter. They've removed ShotSpotter that would ultimately make the neighborhood safer and generate more interest in the residences. And then on top of that, they've spent probably billions of dollars on illegal migrants coming into the city. And so Chicago has been under duress for a long time. And all of this has led to a credit downgrade. The same way that you have a credit score, well, guess what? All of these cities and all of these states, they have credit ratings also. And so that credit downgrade now means that the money that they've borrowed, the money that they owe, because yes, this city is in hella debt, it means that they now pay even more money on the interest that they owe, that they're paying because they're borrowing in order to try to even keep the city coffers solvent. That's how incompetent leaders are. But we can't tell you that. We can't tell you, hey, listen, you don't really understand that these people are running the city into the ground. And even when you get some of these leaders out, you replace them with somebody worse. You had Lori Lightfoot, now you got Brandon Johnson, Mayor Mohawk. So when this reporter is asking these questions, he's setting up the question to give you context, and he don't just want to ask the question outright because he wants to show the people and the viewers why this administration has been so incompetent in the first place. But let's get back to the video.
continue, just so we're all on the same page, this guy right here is Alderman Burnett, and he served 2 years in prison for his role in a bank robbery in 1981. And in case you didn't hear, the city just suffered a credit downgrade.
Yep.
Let's keep going, because this is about to get good.
To add insult to injury.
Sir, I need you to ask your question, please.
Yeah, I will. I know you don't like my questions,
No,
but
it's not
to
that I
answer
don't
your
like your question. Just ask the question, and let's try to avoid being insensitive as well as dismissive.
I think bank robbery is insensitive, but
Okay, ask your question.
That's a
Ryan.
difference of opinion, perhaps.
And that's a problem. That's a problem. Because how can you have somebody in city leadership, which I don't know the guy, but I mean, we've had everybody from the people that we have as tenants to whether or not you want to loan them money for a car. How can you have somebody serving the public that was convicted of a bank robbery in the 80s? Before I was even like getting out of here in the streets. I was born in 82, so I don't know. I think he committed it. He said 1981.
Your wife, for example, to add insult to injury, spent 80,000 taxpayer dollars remodeling a, quote, First Lady office. She sits on a $5,000 First Lady chair, yet no one that I've interviewed so far has any idea what she's doing. Yeah. The question, before you cut my mic apparently, is what have you learned, if anything, from Los Angeles Mayor Bass's incompetence?
Well, before he answers that, let me also remind people, like I like to do, that they are all friends. Karen Bass, who was the Los Angeles mayor that is under fire, that I warned you guys over the years, she was incompetent, and eventually the Roosters were going to come home. Karen Bass, Mike Johnston over in Denver, Eric Adams over in New York, and then the former Houston mayor, who we don't even have to mention because he's no longer the mayor, he's been replaced. They're all friends. They all worked and they were all in cahoots with each other, and they all signed a letter over to the Biden administration thanking him and allowing for them to continue to participate in the immigration crisis, and was petitioning for more federal dollars, which come from you and I, not just from their citizens over in their streets. They're all friends. They're all incompetent together. And this is why the Democratic Party is failing, because your city is absolutely under siege and they're running them into the ground, basically.
You know, as we work to bring the city of Chicago together and our country together, it's important that we stand in support of the families that have experienced loss in Los Angeles. The horrific terrorist attack that happened in New Orleans. Our thoughts and our prayers and our efforts have to be to ensure that as a nation that we come together, and that
I'm sorry, what have you learned? I want to remind people what the question is. What have you learned from the incompetence Mayor Karen Bass has over there in Los Angeles? Not how should we come together from New Orleans and the wildfires.
You know, we don't use these moments of tragedy to further invoke divide.
You said that you're sending Alderman Burnett on a city travel mission. Can I ask what that mission is, where it is, how much it's going to cost the people of Chicago, and what is the presumed benefit of this travel mission?
Yeah, the mission is to build a better, stronger, safer Chicago and to invest in people.
But where is Alderman Burnett going? Yeah, well, I'm just wondering, I mean, can we know where he's going and how much this is costing Chicagoans? We're not allowed to know?
So speaking of reparations and other Holocaust,
they were about to go into reparations. The city just got a downgrade. It's ground zero for the immigration deportation crisis because they've stood together to harbor people that's not supposed to be here in the first place, over here illegally. And now Chicagoans, right, they won't even tell y'all or give y'all visibility into where y'all money is going, and they using it like a piggy bank, and they sending their people on trips. I'm curious as to what y'all think. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. Also, Teach Henley, 40% off your first order plus 20% off for life. We got a Patreon exclusive live stream that's coming up. Stock Club is going to be lit, and I can't wait to add value into y'all life, unlike your blue city mayors that's running y'all cities into the ground. I'm going to holler at y'all later. Let me know what y'all think inside of the comments.